a band perspective then, particularly because we're so close to the release of your brand new EP, Mask
Yep.
Casket, has there been anything that's been keeping you particularly busy at this point in time regarding it?
We so we've got well, I mean, not to get straight into it, but I've had a bit of an enforced hiatus because I was in Thailand for bottom surgery actually about 2.5 months ago.
Mm.
So we had a real big summer of gigs. We played Brighton Trans Pride, supporting on the same stage Kate Nash, which was kind of weird for a black metal band. We played Coalition Fest, played some really great venues in London. And then we had to sort of pause everything while I was away. And
Mm.
our next gig is actually we're the guest headliner for Road to Metal Pride in Sainsbury Haggerston on the 6th of December, which is six bands competing to be on the lineup for the second ever London Metal Pride.
That's cool. Okay. I'm not actually, I'm not aware of that. I mean, it can some of the social media algorithm just means I don't come across things, but yeah, I'm not aware of that competition. That's cool.
We uh Lazarus, who is the lead singer in Worship Sacrifice, a death metal band in London, and myself sort of got together. Must have been about this time last year, and we were like, why is there not a metal event at Pride? And why is it? Don't get me wrong, I'm all for a bit of chaperone. In fact, we covered Pink Pony Club last year at a couple of gigs. But uh, why is there not metal Pride? Like, why is something like that non-exist? So we pulled together in June of this year. I think we had 11 bands on the bill,
Mm.
mainly from London, but I think Bristol, Cardiff, Canterbury, a few around, and we pulled together a really great lineup. And then we're doing it again next year for the second one, and we've had so much interest in trying to get on that bill that we've had to do this gig to sort of make it fair. But there's some great bands on next year. I They haven't been announced yet, but I'm very excited.
Okay, that's cool. December 6th, you say, yeah, Haggerston.
That's the one, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's what's December 6th? Oh, I'm thinking December 5th because I'll be at the Underworld for Underdark on the 5th, and then you've got your show on the
Oh
6th.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's been some really good gigs on this year. I
Oh,
feel like we've been,
spoilt.
yeah.
Oh, hold up a second
Oh,
there. Yeah, hold up. I think it's just gone a little bit funky.
oh,
It might be.
okay.
Bear with
You
me
got
a
me?
second. I don't think it's you. It's actually me. I forgot to close down Final Cut, which was doing a video task in the background. So it's just gonna kick in a moment. Okay. Well, obviously, as well, during the particularly December period of time, December 1st is the actual release date of the
Yeah.
EP. If you were to summarize what you think this EP says about Daughter, how would you summarize it?
So I think the best way of doing that is to give you a bit of a potted history of the band, actually. So our first EP was, well, I mean, when it was written, it was a solo project. It was just me.
Hmm.
Um, and I will openly acknowledge that I am not a producer.
Hmm.
So it had a very, if I'm going to be kind, traditional black metal sound. And it got a really great response, and became very clear in 2024 that we needed to get a live band together. So uh, as soon as we pulled the band together, and the lineup in Dorcha is just incredible musicians
Mm.
across the board. They're brilliant. The rest of the band, and we we wrote this EP and produced this EP as a band. So it's a lot more varied in its influences. The production is a lot higher. And I think it's a bit more sort of intricate and mature, I think. When the first EP was written, the audience was me. I did
Mm,
I planned on putting it out, but I wasn't really thinking much for it. And then with this one, we've um one of the first single we put out was Forge Your Name, and we put that out earlier this summer in conjunction with a documentary called Dear Wes, which is about
mm,
the Beauty Blockers ban. And I think that really does sum up quite well the shift in the band is that for us it I've been I've been in a lot of bands over the years. Daughter is the only band where without fail people come up to me afterwards and cry or thank me, or there is a genuine sense of community, and that can be kids coming up and talking about sort of their experiences being trans, or it'll be my nephew this, my daughter that, and I think this EP is very much the stories of the trans community, not just our stories.
mm. Was that the vision? I mean, if you, I suppose if we're taking, we've got to take daughter into account as a
Yeah.
whole. Then was that the initial vision? Was your goal ultimately when you started a band, even as a solo project, was it to be a voice to speak as much as you could to other trans people and people marginalized?
I think daughter is Cathexis, our drummer,
Mm,
and I have both said this in the past, which is daughter is a band that we don't want to exist. Um, daughter is a band that takes the misanthropy and the hatred of black metal and says this is what it's like to live,
mm,
particularly in the UK, as a trans person. It is an existence where you are consistently hated,
mm,
and it's taking that and saying, right, okay, this needs to exist. This is not a comfortable thing or a necessarily a joyful thing.
mm.
This is music that we believe we need to put out there for ourselves and for other people. Um, because there is a fight at the moment. I mean, um, I think there's a line in one of the songs, and it's terrible in my own lyrics. I can't remember which one's which. That's sort of uh saying they've come for our rights, our existence, our lives, and I
Mm.
think that is what we're experiencing at the moment. In the US election, I think it was something like $15 million was spent on anti-trans ads across the board. It's a world where black metal fits.
Mm.
Um, so for us, it's about taking that and pointing it in that direction.
But in a perfect world, you would have nothing to get angry about. You'd have nothing to focus that rage and intensity at. I get what you're saying. In the perfect
Yeah,
world, daughter
absolutely.
wouldn't exist.
I think yeah, it's a Daughter is a project about creating and I black metal gets a bad rep, often for very legitimate reasons.
Mm.
Um, and I think for us, it's about taking that back and saying that actually that scream into the void, that anger,
Hmm.
that hatred, there's value in that. And actually that is a part of human emotion and is something that we should be embracing. But it needs a space when we're playing a lot of our live shows. It's a hard one to explain. I've seen multiple times people sort of hugging in the front row in front of the mosh pit, and I think there is a real mixture of emotions in that. There's a song on the new EP called "Mourning the Mask,"
Mm.
um, and that's written well, a lot of trans people uh, lose contact with their families, not because they want to. because it is
Mm.
forced upon them. And that song is from that perspective. And it's one that when we play it live, it, it allows people to acknowledge that they're not alone in that experience.
Mm.
And I think that's a really needed and necessary and powerful thing to be able to deliver. I have nothing against sort of meaningless booze and guitars thrash bands. Love them, but it's a different vibe for us. And I think that's the distinction is really we're here because I think we're providing something to our audience. And if we stopped doing that, we felt like we were just another generic black metal band, we'd stop.
Mm. I think certainly can only speak for myself. The connection that people get, that I get with music, is way more important when it's got meaning behind it. And there's something being said, and whether or not I personally connect to it, if I'm aware that others will, and I can at least feel and understand what is being said, sung, however expressed, then there's nothing better as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, meaningless and I say meaningless, drink, rock, whatever can be fun, and there is plenty of time for that, but I'll still take music with meaning any day.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we
I
gotta
should
go.
say,
Sorry.
sorry, no, I was just going to say, I should say, like, the album is aggressive. It is black
Mm,
metal, but there are also, I think, moments of sort of of humor in there. There are moments of uh sort of care and tenderness in there.
mm,
It's I mentioned Morning the Mask. There's another song on that EP, When We Are Dust, which is sort of looking back at the absurdity of people sort of like, oh yeah, but when a archaeologist in 300 years comes and looks at your bones, they'll know that you were 3 inches more than taller than average in your femur or whatever. And it's just so ridiculous. But it's quite for me. That's always been quite a um sort of tender song because it is this question of like, well, we're gone by that point.
mm,
I don't care. I see that as a celebration of like, yeah. Um, I think so. When we are dust, you and I, they'll know I lived and you just died. It's like,
mm,
well, I'm doing mine now. I don't mind what the future holds. And then there's flesh, which is or monstrous flesh. Sorry, that's what's written on the set list. Monstrous flesh, which I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't heard it, but the end of that song disappears into a space that black metal often doesn't.
mm.
Uh, in a little bit of disco. So it's there's some interesting stuff on there, I think.
I think that's. I'm really glad you mentioned it because while for me black metal is its core, yes, Mask Casket genre bends in a very expressive and experimental way. I mean, there's a number of different ideas, different things that you do here, and that's what makes it such a fascinating release for me. But it also feels like it was important for you to kind of show, I guess, development and evolution from 2024 silhouettes as well with this EP, right?
Oh, definitely. As I mentioned, you've got more writers on there. Um, we're playing with a more interesting palette. Not to sound too pretentious, but I'm a crap guitarist.
Mm.
And when I have to play every single part that I write, it limits it. And now I've got the band has got two incredible guitarists in the lineup, and it gives us not only their ability to play, but their ability to write. And it really has pushed us. Shroud, Ben was in previously in a groove metal band, and I think if you listen to Hide in Plain Sight, you can hear those
Mm.
groove elements coming through. I think if you You look at the EP as a whole, it's more expressive. The Silhouettes was a sort of unashamedly black metal EP. This still is, but it's black metal with the freedom to mess about and to try new stuff.
Yeah, black metal with feeling as well.
Mm.
There is beauty here. I was fascinated that anybody who can make a make any black metal sound pretty, sound beautiful in a way. Yeah, it's always an impressive thing to me.
Thank you.
Well, you've kind of mentioned some specific tracks, but I kind of wanted to do that as well. So I'm going to pick
Yeah,
your brains over a couple of specifics, really. And I want to kind of touch upon the one that first really jumped out at me in my first sort of initial listen, and it was "Pick Up a Brick."
oh yeah.
It's quite an anthemic track in a notable melody, post tinge, and all of that. What did you want this track to say?
Pick Up a Brick is um Pick Up a Brick is speaking to allies.
Hmm.
It's based in the frustration over the last year or so of the conversations that I have had with so many friends, with colleagues who do not understand what is happening to trans people at the moment.
Mm,
In terms of the genuine dangers, the removal of rights, the increase in hate crimes, the increase in violent crimes, in twofold increase in last year in the deaths of trans activists. Um, it's sort of it can be quite a frustrating conversation, and it's always one that's responded to with sympathy,
mm,
and sympathy is great, but I'd much rather you picked up a brick.
hmm.
And it's the reference, obviously, to the Stonewall riots and Marsha P. Johnson, and the idea that actually, yeah, you can talk all you want, but at the end of the day, whether it's the suffragettes or whether it's Stonewall, change doesn't come from sitting around the table. Changes come through a mixture of diplomacy and aggression. And so the pick up a brick is really just a plea to cis allies to as it says in the bridge at the end just before the breakdown. We need your anger. We need your defense. As we do the dying, you sit on the fence. Get into this fight. You must take a stand. Put your skin in our game. Our only demand. And I think that's that's what this is about. It's like we are dying around you, as the chorus says. Like we're literally watching friends die. Um, we are 0.5% of the population. We can't do this on our own. We'll lose. And I think it's just a scream, begging as a song to get cis allies to stand with us.
Well, yeah, thank you for explaining that. It comes through quite strongly in your lyrics, funny because from black metal perspective as well. Obviously, black metal can sometimes be quite unlistenable from a vocal perspective. Wait, what are you saying? What's that? And so on. But it is quite fun to kind of listen to this and be able to pick out some of those quite clear lyrics. And obviously, when
Like,
you read up
I'm
and get a
glad
little
you
bit more
can,
knowledge.
because I'm glad you can. I always feel guilty because I feel like whenever we put out a new song, the first thing I get requests for is like, well, can you send the lyrics out? Can you like what?
I'm not going to say all. I'm saying some. I'm saying some. I still need a little bit of work, but it is really really powerful when you're really kind of connecting and understanding what you're expressing there as well. Because obviously, from a non-metal, people who don't listen to metal and rock and stuff like that will hear music like this and just go, it's just screaming, and obviously that doesn't do the lyrics and the song, the words,
Hmm.
the justice it deserves.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Because I'm very much I'm a woman of lyrics more than music, and I say that as a musician. My favorite songs will be songs where I remember the lyrics as much as I remember the melody, and so I sit in a bit of a perpetual paradox with black metal because it's not meant to be accessible. It's not meant to be engaging in that way.
Mm.
But I really would like you to hear it.
It is a funny one. You're absolutely right because again, the most memorable music is the stuff you can sing along to. You can't really
Mm.
sing along to black metal. And as much as I'd love to be able to sing along to what you're doing in Daughter, I don't know if I've got the lungs for it.
Well, we're writing new music at the moment, and I think maybe Forge Your Name is the closest we get to accessible at the moment. I would argue actually, just to really piss off all the sort of true cult purists, Forge Your Name's Melodeath. It's not really black metal at all, uh, but it is certainly the most accessible track, I think, on the album.
Yes, no, it's always fun pissing off the black metal purists, so do that more. Speaking of Forge Your Name, if the track itself wasn't potent enough, we have the video. I would urge everyone who wants to check that track out is you can listen to it on streaming, but maybe go check out the video as well if you really want to get the full weight of this track. And I guess I just want you to talk to me a little bit about making that video. It's particularly the March segments.
Yeah, so it was filmed at London Trans Pride this year,
Mhm.
which is the biggest trans protest event in the world. I believe it was 100,000 people this year, which is incredible and really shows you the support that does exist. Um, we we knew we wanted to do something at the protest at Pride, and we we put out an open call effectively to everyone who knew the band who was already going to be there, and just said, "Look, if you want to be involved, this is what we're going to do." And Jess, who was the director of Dear Wes, also filmed the music video for Your Name, which she did walking backwards through Regent Street for a long amount of time, which was very impressive. But it's filmed in central London during Trans Pride, and I'm incredibly grateful to I think it must have been about 50 in the end people we had down there who were a part of that video and just marched with us and screamed with us.
It is incredible. I loved what looking right in the distance in the background and to see the odd curious or confused face to be like, what's going on over there? It looked amazing. It looked fun. I know it's a lot of work. It would have been an incredible
It was
amount of work, but it looked like it was
it was a
fun.
lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It's obviously it's an incredibly serious song, and it's a song about a really important cause that, I mean, at the end of the day is life or death. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Mm.
But at the same time, filming it was incredibly fun. Going back to that sort of that point I made earlier about London Metal Pride, I'm a metalhead. I love extreme metal, and yet that's the first time I've gone to Pride in corpse paint,
Mm.
and I think that it allows a bit of freedom, and honestly, it was lovely to be surrounded by people who knew the importance of that song and really felt what it means to push that.
Mm.
There was I think there was one of the banners that was that someone had brought just said trans kids are magic. And if you watch, and I encourage you to, the documentary Dear Wes, it is brutal, some of the stories that those children are telling.
Mm.
And there is a story from a 15-year-old talking about how at a protest by Wes Streeting's offices in East London, they started getting abuse on the street from a bunch of adult men.
Mm.
Um, and they said that they had to cover the ears and put a a blanket over a 13-year-old who was next to them. And I don't know what you were doing at 13, but I wasn't getting abuse in the street for standing up for my right to healthcare.
No.
And I think that that's why Forge Your Name matters, because those kids are. And I grew up, and show my age, but I grew up during Section 28. And there is a generation of trans and broader LGBTQ people who in my generation who simply grew up knowing they were wrong,
Mm,
knowing like if you're my age, you grew up with movies like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective that spends the last 20 minutes of that movie making a joke about the fact that they're all throwing up because they kissed a trans woman.
hmm
Like there was no one telling me to forge my name when I was 13. And the fact that organizations like Trans Kids Deserve Better aren't just doing that, they are out there themselves. Like that to me it's incredible. I can't put it into words. I certainly wouldn't have had the strength to at that age to be as brave and as strong as they are in the face of adversity.
mm. It is simply incredible. And I guess that's what you've done with Forge Your Name, which is to just try and put your voice to it, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You've already mentioned Mourning the Mask, but I want to come back to that track
Yeah.
specifically because it's my favorite one of the six on the EP. It's simply staggering listen. And one of the things I love most about it is how you push yourself vocally. What I feel like is you push yourself to some some limits really. It must have been incredibly hard to do from a vocal perspective, and that's what I want to kind of dig into a little bit if you don't mind. Talk to me about the challenges you faced making this track a reality, because it is quite potent.
So we actually Morning the Mask has both my vocals and Charlotte, our drummer, on the vocals as well. When we play it live, it's just her in the chorus, and I play a guitar part instead underneath.
Hmm
Um, and I think Morning the Mask is Charlotte's story. Um, I My role in those lyrics was editor. Um,
Okay.
I I tweaked it to fit what we needed as a band, but it's her story. And I think when you listen to the chorus, you can tell. And it comes from that really deep emotional place. And it, I think it would be impossible for us to do what we did on Morning and what I believe we did on Girl That Slept in the previous EP with every single track we did. They are too difficult to do emotionally.
Mm.
And Morning the Mask, I know very few trans people who haven't experienced even if they have a positive relationship with family, who
Mm.
haven't experienced at the very minimum some really awful conversations and challenges, even if they haven't been kicked out or blacklisted from the family. Things like I'm mourning the son or daughter I lost.
Mm.
I'm it'll take me a while to get used to it because I've lost my son.
hmm
So the the pain to receive those comments and to know that someone is mourning what represents everything that you hated about your existence
Mm.
and also cannot see the joy and the freedom and the delight and the happiness in you burning that.
Mm.
And I think Mourning the Mask for me, when I because I wrote most of the music for that, and it it was always about trying to trying to not overplay the hand, trying to make this really let the let the vocals come through, let the emotion come through, rather than it trying to be complex riffs or
Mm.
anything like that. It's very sort of atmospheric black metal, very Death Heaven, Violet Cold, that sort of space. And really that's what I wanted to try and create with it. And I think Charlotte's vocals on the chorus are incredible. I think it's yeah, it's as I said earlier, it is the song that really does go hard,
Mm.
particularly the outro, um, when we play it live. And it's always really humbling to be able to have that effect on people.
I can only imagine what their experience is like live. It's something I want to experience myself live. I've not seen you play, but I look forward to changing that at some point near in the future. Particularly if this song's part of the set list, as you said,
Oh,
because I think it's
absolutely.
simply fantastic.
Thank you.
But so much of CP I love, and your passion, power, and unbridled honesty comes through strongly across it. I think that's such an important thing about it. And it got me thinking about how easy it might be for you personally to kind of open up as you do. Has it always been something you've been able to do, or is it something that's continuing to develop? It's getting easier over time as you kind of do it more and more.
Oh, what a great question. I we've got we've got some moments in our lyrics
Mm,
that are really painful. We've we've got moments in some of the stuff that's currently unreleased. I can't wait to go already onto the third one. Um, there's the more that we work on this project, the more permission I feel that I have to sort of really get into things. I think that the first EP felt like yeah, the, so I think there's a maturity in I think the writing on this EP lyrically
mm,
that has broader topics, broader ways of looking at things, and the more time you spend on stage, I think, and the more that you speak to people and you realize that they want to hear what you're putting out, they want to engage with it. It gives you permission and freedom to go out there. And as you said, this is an EP that sort of wears its ADHD on its sleeve. And I think that that's part of who we are as a band is we we've got permission to do weird stuff that I feel that sometimes genres metal, I think metal in general, so I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent. I think metal in general is very opposed to innovation.
mm,
I think metal likes rules,
mm.
and there is a reason that you can find bands right now, black metal bands, that are 5 years old that sound exactly as if they came out of Oslo in 1904.
Yep.
There are bands that sound like they came of Gothenburg in like death metal bands in or Florida that sound exactly like they did in the 80s. And I think metal likes that. Metal has a real celebration of consistency. And I think when you look at bands like Igor or Zealanada,
Mm.
to sort of pick two in black metal, or Imperial Triumphant, I'm really drawn to those bands. I think it break the rules, express stuff that can't be expressed. I want to hear Sabrina Carpenter mixed in with sort of grindcore. I want Miles Davis in with flipping black metal, because that's what's going to be interesting. And I think for us, this EP is our permission slip to sort of go out there and try new things. And I think this we will often joked in practice when we're sort of writing new stuff. So this hasn't got a weird daughter bit in it yet. It needs a weird daughter bit. And I think sometimes you sort of like, this is a good song, but it's not interesting enough yet. We need to push it a bit more.
So your confidence is growing as you experiment more and more.
I think so, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. I'm kind of getting a bigger, grander picture, perhaps of maybe more of your influences. And you mentioned three of, well, I would just put up three of my favorite, kind of on the extreme end, particularly Imperial Triumphant, doing the maddest stuff in metal. But what a band!
So good, so good. It's an incredible band.
But if we like narrow it down to something a bit smaller, let's just focus on, say, the London scene, which is varied in itself across the rock and metal spectrum. We're sport for choice most of the time, not just from a show perspective, but just from a listening perspective. You're a major part of that. Do you feel Daughter is accepted and part of the wider London metal scene? And also, what can be done to kind of help DIY bands within the city to kind of, get their name out there?
Um, we were interviewed by UK death dealers after a gig at the Cart and Horses, I think last year,
Cool.
and we were asked, like, particularly in the black metal space, we're like, do you feel like you're a part of the scene? Are you welcomed? And my response at the time was, we are the scene. Like I dare you to turn up with your swastikas and your sort of red caps. Like we're the majority, and I think there's a real power in that. And we we often get brought in, and I appreciate it. We often, but musically it's distinct, but we often get brought into a lot of queercore nights. And I think the more extreme music gets, the more sort of people are willing to sort of throw the extreme ends of lots of genres together. So we do end up on a couple of punk lineups, and I think there's a lot of really positive community. Daughter are part of the London Metal Coalition, London Metal Valkyries, and I think, and particularly the London Metal Valkyries, where we are looking to push and support women and non-binary people in metal. Um, you've got bands like just in the Valkyries, bands like the Slaughtering, bands like Call of Fenrir with Liv playing guitar. You've got Aaliyah doing vocals for Tales of Perdition. You've got Deity and Devilry. Electron. There's so many bands in London that are really helping each other
Mm.
to sort of to push forward. And I think that's, I mean, if I was going to give any advice, and we are by no means sort of massive, but if I was going to give any advice to bands that want to push out there, I'd be like, just go do it. Take the risk and put on your own night. Go speak to a venue. Um, take the gamble between sort of four bands of booking a venue and selling the tickets. If you book them, they will come.
Hmm.
And I think so many bands kind of will say, "Oh, I wish we could do more gigs." Like, well, book them. It's not that hard. And um, our debut gig, which was Trans Pride 2024, and we booked that. We knew the bands we wanted on the bill, so we just put the gig together, and it was incredible, and it felt so worthwhile. And I think
Mm.
I I think there is an idea that being in a band is hard.
Mm.
Um, you if you've got three of you and some instruments, you can go be in a band. There's a band from Canterbury called Angry Gynophiles, who
Okay.
are a sort of hardcore band. Their first gig they played after their drummer had been practicing the drums for 6 months, and it was a brilliant show. And I think go out there, book venues, practice like in your bedroom with pots and pans if you need to, but just get stuff together and then make it happen.
Mm.
There's too many bands that bemoan what they could do, and not enough bands going out there and doing it.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. Someone's got to jump in the deep end. You'll quickly find out if you can swim or not, or if it's for you. Because obviously, well, yes, it can be a
Yeah,
ton of fun, and there is work, and it's not like there's much money in it, so you've got to be dedicated.
I think uh it's about finding the spaces that fit you. I as an extreme metal band, we're we're never going to be playing giant venues, and
Mm.
it doesn't serve us much purpose to push huge amounts of sort of coverage on spaces that are going to immediately ignore us because we're not. There's a great quote from the comedian Andrew O'Neill in their show History of Heavy Metal, where they say, talking about black metal, it's like, now if you think it sounds crap, good, it's not for you. And I think there's this little bit of a celebration in that sometimes of like, look, find your audience and enjoy it with them,
Mm.
whatever that may be, rather than, I mean, a very cynical perspective, I think the vast majority of the music industry, particularly when you add AI into the mix, is you said it doesn't make money. It's a dead industry.
Mm.
You you create music because you love to create music. I think there's certainly a metal. Um, you see bands like Svalbard who are doing their last UK tour at the moment.
Mm.
Fantastic band. They like in the last 5 years they've hit some. They've played Bloodstock. They've been brilliant, and they've called it quits. And I think it's a real shame because it is hard, and I think it's not a particularly easy one to do. But I do think you do it for the love of the game. It's brilliant. There is genuinely no better feeling for me than, and I tend to be a bit acrobatic, shall we say, at our shows. I will be in the crowd a lot and or jump off it. Like we played a festival a couple of years ago, and I was wearing high heels on stage, and I climbed up on top of the bar and like sort of jumped into the mosh pit from that. And it was only when I was sort of halfway through the air that I thought, God, I hope I land this. But it's um, we do a lot of that, and I think there's nothing more fun than just being surrounded by people who are in the same space as you and want to
Mm.
celebrate that. And oh, it's great. We've we had again. So I feel like I'm going off on lots of tangents, but
Please
when
carry
we
on.
played Coalition Fest this year, someone came up to me afterwards in an Oasis chat. And they said, I don't really normally listen to this music, but a friend of mine told me about you guys, and I had to come see you. And they started chatting away about everything under the sun, and it was so great because if we had sort of met at the bar, it's unlikely that we're going to even sort of acknowledge each other.
Mm.
But through music, we're like suddenly like we're chatting away, and they were talking about their gender identity and conversations that are really quite challenging to have. But because we're able to be there and we're able to be visible, it's something that people can talk to us about. And I think I keep going back to it, but at the heart of Daughter is a sense of community, whether it is the loss and the sadness in mourning the mask, or whether it is um, the aggression of something like pick up a brick. It's about sharing those emotions with people who feel them too. Um, and and that's what Daughter is.
Yeah, I mean, I just you sum up so well. I just think, like you say, using that person as an example, the Oasis shirt wearing person, but anyone who's maybe got absolutely nothing in common with in any normal day, but the thing that you end up having in common is Daughter, you performing,
Yeah.
them listening, and that sense of community that is different as well. You have what you have from the live side of things, but then you just have the community that perhaps doesn't come out and say see you live, but is online and sends you messages and stuff like that. I'm going to put words in your mouth, but please correct me if I'm wrong. I imagine there's no better feeling than having those moments with people.
Oh, not at all. No, it's amazing. I did mention it earlier, and I at the risk of repeating myself, Daughter is the only band I've been in countless bands. Daughter's the only band I've been in where a gig has not gone past where someone hasn't talked to me afterwards and hugged me or like tears in their eyes and had genuine meaningful conversations. And I'm going to show my London bias here, so I do apologize. We um last year we played Ballstock, which is the sort of festival up in Baldock in
Mm.
Hertfordshire. And my terrible London centric views, I remember thinking, we're going to go one or two ways on this bill. Um, and after the show, I remember chatting to so many people who I would have pigeonholed into a very specific box,
Mm.
who came up at the merch stand talking to us and were incredible. And it was so brilliant to do that. And I think one thing Daughter has really genuinely done for me um, is it's shown the spectrum of greys that exist in a black and white world. And the yes, there is a war going on, and yes, we're really under attack. But actually, there was there was a study that was done. I'm leaving music behind a little bit, but there
Mm.
was a study that was done by YouGov a couple of years ago that showed that it doesn't matter if you are asking about um, which bathroom I should use, whether trans people should be involved in sport, whether they should, or whether we should have access to healthcare, um, whatever the particular thing you want to remove us from is. Um, the biggest factor in that in where people would sit on that wasn't age, wasn't location, wasn't gender. It was, do you know a trans person?
Mm.
And one of the things I want to do with Daughter is say, hey, look, we're here. And for a lot of metal people, we may be the first trans people they've met, at least the
Hmm.
first person they know they've met. And it it means that they go away and they're not thinking, oh, it's the monster that they've made up in GB News. They're thinking, oh, it's the women and Daughter. And actually I had a great conversation with her. And that's not the monster that I see on TV. So maybe I should think about it again. And I think again, like door, if you look at pick up a brick, there's an element of that in there as well. There's sort of we want to show you our humanity. We
Hmm.
want to show you that we're worthy of humanity. Um, because when you do know a trans person, shock horror, you tend to treat them as the humans that we are.
Mm.
And again, 0.5% of us. It takes a while to get around the whole country. What was the it's the Simpsons episode, isn't it? This is really, really dating me. There's an early Simpsons episode where um Homer has his life saved by a gay guy because he's
Of
thinks Bart's gay.
course.
And
Yeah.
the last line in that episode is like, now if only every gay man in the whole of America could save my life, we'd be all right. And
Yeah.
it's just it's sort of that kind of vibe all over again with trans people is the more we can make these interactions, the more we can speak to people at gigs, the more when we're on a bill and there's no way they're going like there's a big difference between coming to see a daughter show where we're on a queercore gig or we're playing London Metal Pride
Mm.
versus when we turn up and it's sort of a very stereotypical sort of metal space. And it's not like we're not metal, like we're metal as fuck.
Yeah.
But it's it's different and it's like, oh, okay, it's not what I thought it was. It's that lot too. So I think that's part of what we're doing.
Yeah. I guess I don't even know what I can really add there to you. You've spoken so confidently and so much from the heart about things that are so specific to you that like it's powerful. It's powerful for me to hear as well. New experiences and what you experience as you travel, I guess, as well, and play more shows and play
Yeah.
these events and who you're meeting. It's just incredible for me to hear. And I'm glad so many people are getting so much from the music. Because I got a lot from this EP. And I think I'm going to listen to it again. Well, to the end of the year, basically. The end of the year lists are coming, and this EP is somehow sneaking into the top 10 of our EPs, which is incredible. What do you hope then, listeners in general, just listeners in general, take away from the EP?
It's seeing themselves connection, be that cis allies, be that other trans people, be that the families of trans people, or just simply metalheads. I we want you to listen to this EP and realize that there are experiences out there that perhaps you're not having or you're having from a different angle.
Hmm.
Um, and realize that there's a voice worth listening to. I mentioned this sort of growing up under Section 28. There's there's a there's a generation of trans people that don't have cultural elders
Hmm.
because they didn't make it and or they had to hide who they were. And I can't let another generation grow up like that.
Hmm.
We need to be able to provide voices in that space. We need to be able to show people that when they're at the dev and we're playing, it it makes that a welcoming space. You can be confident that if daughter on the stage, that it's the kind of place that wants daughter on stage. And I was chatting to a friend of mine a while ago who's lovely guy. I won't name him because I don't want to drop him in it. Um, and he's 6 foot a lot, absolutely built. And we were talking about whether spaces have to be overtly inclusive and signal loudly their inclusivity. And I said, I bet you've never walked into a bar and checked to see if you were welcome.
Mm.
I bet you've never wondered as you walked down the street, it's like, oh my God, what's going to happen when I turn the corner? I said, because you know you're welcome. And you know when you walk into a metal bar, there's not an issue,
Hmm.
particularly when and more these days the UK as well. But if I'm traveling, I'm not confident that I'm welcome in a metal bar unless there's a trans flag up behind the bar. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be huge. Stick it in a pot next to a bunch of pound coins. But suddenly that being there is a giant alarm that says it's okay to be here. And daughter, for me, are that. The more we show up, and it's and not just us. Like there's bands like I mean, you mentioned Underdark, but there's bands like Karnstein.
Hmm.
There's bands like Lamp of Murmur. There's there's Feminazgul. Like there are quite a few trans black metal bands, and particularly then if you go beyond that into sort of other forms of extreme music where you've got um, bands like Transistor in the sort of extreme punk space and Triadora. And the more we are visible, the more it lets those kids know when they walk in the bar, when they walk in the venue, that they can get on that stage.
Mm.
And you asked me earlier about what can like new bands do, what could they how can they push themselves? One of the things that and I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, but one of the things I want to make sure we push back is you if you see us on stage, you know that you can be on stage if you're a trans kid.
Hmm.
Because I didn't know it when I was a kid. Like no one told me that I was allowed to do that. And if you don't see yourself, you can't be that. You
Mm.
need that space to push yourself. And whenever I see, and again, I'm going to sound like a mum here, but whenever I see like teenagers in daughter merch, I'm so happy because it's that connection and that acknowledgement that yeah, like I want to be sitting in the audience or not sitting. I want to be standing in the audience watching you do this in 6 months.
Mm.
You've heard our vocals. There's a limited amount of time you can do that. So like, I want to see those new bands coming through, and I want to celebrate them. And we need to like be there loudly to show that they can do the same thing.
Shout. We're going to shout as loud as we possibly can, including about this EP as well. Let's just remind everybody December 1st is its release date, Mask
Yep.
Casket. Izzy, we've hit an hour. So I think it's probably time we wrap this up. Are you a Christmas fan by just out of interest?
I'm always a fan.
Okay, then a last kind of question then. What does your perfect Christmas look like?
So I think I mentioned right at the start that our drummer Charlotte actually lives with me.
Yeah.
We do an orphans Christmas. So anyone we know who doesn't have family are overseas for whatever reason, they're not going to be with people. We have everybody round,
Mm.
and it's lovely. And so my dream Christmas will be getting slightly drunk on Christmas Eve with whiskey as we try and remember how to cook a turkey, and then having lots of wonderful, varied people come round on Christmas Day to celebrate with us. Um, Last year we got drunk and watched Buffy, so
Hell yeah. Drunk and watching Buffy. What a perfect Christmas.
mixed in with I think Norwegian reggaeton by
Oh
Manowar.
God. Fabulous. It has been an absolute privilege to talk to you and go in depth in this
Yeah,
EP.
you
I
too.
thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbale.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.